Hi everybody, it's me, Patrick, the Comfortable Counselor. Welcome back to my channel. It's the channel where I make videos about guys and the topics and issues about our lives. By the way, happy Father's Day. Hope you're having a great day so far. And also, one more thing, please subscribe to my channel. I'd appreciate it. Today I have a special guest. His name is Josh Sheets. He's a licensed clinical social worker, and he also is a counselor, and he also is a new dad. So he has decided to join me today, I'm thankful for that, to talk about dads and mental health and how we all can figure this out to be the best dads we could possibly be. So, stay with me for a few minutes, put your feet up, and let's do this. Welcome back, everybody. Like I said, I have a special guest today. His name is Josh Sheets. He is an LCSW. He's a counselor. He has been a good friend of mine for the last few years. How long has it been? It's been at least 5-6 years, right?
Longer than that, I think.
Has it?
Going on 10 before I went to grad school.
Oh, that's right.
Met.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
yeah.
Okay, so it's been a while. I have a lot of confidence in this guy, and he became a counselor before I did, and he has definitely shared some of his experiences with me. So I've asked him to come here today because, I'm trying to get in the camera just a little bit here more, about, he's a brand new dad, relatively.
Yes.
Elliot is your first
Yes.
child, and how old is he, 18 months now?
19 months?
19 months?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then just a month ago or so, you had Magnolia.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So,
And she's approaching 3 months.
3
We've
months.
got 2 under 2. So
That's
yes.
cool. So, a relatively new dad. If you saw my post today, which I think was hilarious, my wife actually found that, but the fire hose, come
yes.
right at you. It feels that way when you're a new dad and you're trying to figure things out. And unfortunately, we're not born with that motherly instinct innate, and we're trying to support our wife, support our children, job, and if you have other things going on, you definitely are feeling a little stressed and overwhelmed.
Absolutely.
So I just have a few questions for you in regards to your thoughts and feelings about being a relatively new dad. So first question I have for you is, what's it like being a relatively new dad?
Oh, man. It is fantastic. It's probably one of the best experiences that I've had in my life. Also, one of the most frustrating experiences. Like you said, there's no book really on being a dad. It's a completely different experience for dads versus moms. Throughout the pregnancy, our spouse or our partner, they can feel the child move, and they have a completely different experience. And so for us, we're kind of on the outside.
Literally.
The most interaction that we have is maybe to be able to feel a kick. Elliot was not much of a kicker, so we had a lot of worry and lots of prayers when we didn't feel movement, and so we are completely. You can feel very helpless. So something that was helpful for me was to make sure I attended all the ultrasounds. I tried to talk to our children while they were still, in the womb, to be able to develop some type of bond.
That's cool.
And to pray for my children, and just trying anything that I can to develop that bond, because like you said, it's just different for guys and for fathers. We don't have some of those motherly instincts, so we're just as important, but it takes us a little bit more effort to be able to develop those bonds with our children. And so besides being tired from work and being a parent, I'm probably more happy than I've ever been because I've got 2 beautiful children that are look up to me like I know what I'm doing in life. So it's a wonderful experience being a new dad.
That's cool. You mentioned that us dads, we kind of lack that kind of instinct, and we have some of our own challenges, and we definitely. It's good to read books and literally watch videos about other dads and how they do things, and this is probably why I wanted to do this, is to help the guys out there to have some kind of perspective. Okay, like, you're not alone. And I want us all to be able to feel like, okay, so he has the same challenges as I do. Well, I feel the same way. So you feel a sense of community with other dads and whatnot. And so, but what has been your biggest challenge so far at being a new dad?
So I think the initial challenge was just the overwhelming kind of anxiety or stress that I felt. I was so excited that we were pregnant and that we were going to have this baby. But, it was like in the middle of the night, I'd just pop up out of bed and be like, oh no, am I going to be able to financially provide for my wife and for this child? And, I started thinking about, all the things that I want to teach, my son and daughter. But then I also think, look at all my own individual struggles. I don't want to pass those on, to my children. Am I doing enough to get myself in check so I'm not influencing, my children? But I know that's very kind of in the future because they're both very small. But I think for now, one of the biggest challenges that I have is just trying to remember that they're little and they're learning, and to keep my patience, because when you or your partner, when you've been up throughout the night feeding a baby and you've got a little toddler who's wanting your attention, it can be easy to lose your temper and get frustrated because you've spent the last 5 minutes saying, no, don't touch this. And, the baby's crying and everything like that. So it's really just trying to maintain, that patience, and not allowing situations to get the best of you. And I wish I could say that I've been able to do that 100% of the time. But even though I'm a therapist, I'm human. Right. I still get frustrated.
Therapists are human, by the way. And even sometimes the advice we give you all as our clients, we don't take ourselves. Okay, right. I promise you that right now. I was just literally talking to my therapist today on an appointment this morning. And I was telling him that I was going, having a little bit of anxiety about some issues I was going on in my life. And I told my therapist point blank, the very things I tell my own clients, I am not doing myself, And so I'm like, it's like I'm such a hypocrite sometimes. But we are human and don't always take advice that we know absolutely works.
Right. And I think on that note, one of the biggest struggles that I have as well is self-care. Because not only as a therapist is it important, but I think as parents and as individuals, it is important to be able to take some time for yourself, because we devote so much time to our children and making sure their needs are met and trying to spend time with them. And by the time they're in bed, it may be after 8 o'clock, and then you have very limited time with you and your spouse before, I know my wife likes to go to bed early, and I'm still, still feel like, well, I haven't had, just a moment to myself. And I know my wife feels that way as well. So sometimes even just being able to take a shower in peace, or to be able to run to the store just to get like a very minor break. Those things are important because it can get overwhelming. We can get frustrated. And we still need to be able to do the things that we enjoy.
Sure. We still need to do that. And I think one of the biggest challenges we have as really whether we are moms or dads is giving ourselves permission to do that, because we feel like we owe and owe and owe and owe in regards to, I've got to help this, I've got to help this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, and if I don't do this, it's going to fall apart, And so being able to give ourselves permission and to be able to communicate to our significant other that we need time for ourselves. Also, that discussion needs to happen, and needs to happen in a safe environment. When I say safe environment, I mean, you should be able to tell your spouse, hey, I need some me time, Let's schedule some me time. Let's get some you time for you. When would you like that? And we schedule some me time for me. So scheduling. I know it sounds crazy. You live. Why should I schedule? I had one client tell me, why should I schedule? I live with this person. But no, you'd be surprised at things that really work well when you schedule. That ranges from going to the store, taking a shower, going on a run, intimate time even. I mean, literally scheduling is a good idea. Spontaneity, I think, is the spice of life, but for sanity
Yeah.
sakes, I think we really need to time block our lives.
Yes.
So how have you adjusted your life to fill your new role? What's, you were single, a few years ago.
Right.
Then, you were married for a short time, and then now this.
Yes.
So what kind of adjustments have you made mentally and
Right.
emotionally, spiritually?
All the above. So I think I really had to learn to try and put the needs of others before myself. Now, as a therapist, I tell people, to maybe not do that all the time. But I think, as we said earlier, for dads, to develop that bond, and I think just as men, we really like to, we want to be the provider or the protector. And so I will confess right now, it was very difficult for me to take time off of work to be at home with, my wife and daughter, who was recently born. Now, I know that sounds bad, but I'm very committed to, I want to work, I want to do a good job, because that provides for my family. And so it was difficult to take the time off. So as you were saying earlier, I had to give myself permission to do that, so that I could spend time with the family. Because I think we sometimes get too wrapped up in I have to work, or I have to provide, or I have to do this role, and don't focus on, I may need to shift on how I approach things, or some of the things that I'm doing, so that I can meet the needs of others. And what I mean by that, when I come in from work, I would love nothing more than to sit in the recliner, put something on, Netflix, and just kind of veg out. That is something that I don't have the opportunity to do anymore. As soon as I get home, I'm right into that parenting role.
Right.
My
One
wife,
demand after another.
Exactly.
Bam, 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 bam.
Right. So, I may get 5 minutes sitting to just kind of take a breather, which I asked for. But usually my son's crawling on me, or I'm holding our daughter, which I'm not complaining about. But, it's just, I have to recognize that my need right in that moment to have that time to unwind and recharge my batteries, that's not the most important need right at that moment. I've got two little ones that haven't seen me all day and need my attention, and my wife needs a breather as well. So any stress that I can take off of her,
sure.
Happy wife, happy life. So.
Right. I like your transparency, and that's the community I'm trying to build with the comfortable counselor and coaching. Is just, I put myself out there. I tell about, like I just told you a minute ago, I see my own therapist, and you're not complaining, you're not being a douchebag.
Right.
You're trying to do the right thing,
Right.
but these are genuine concerns. You're not a selfish guy. I've known you for a long time, and I think a lot of us are not selfish fathers and dads. But we still have these legitimate concerns that they're going through our heads. And then I think what happens a lot of time is we start to feel like guilty for thinking those things, then we feel shame for thinking those things, and that just actually makes things worse and gives you less self-confidence to be the person that you need to be to help those who depend on you, wife, children, job, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So I appreciate your candidness about that, because we all need to accept that about ourselves. I have complaints. I have concerns. They may be temporary. They may be easily fixable. But if you voice them and someone can feel heard, a friend, therapist, whatever, men's group, you're going to feel a lot better about yourself. Again, going back to what I said before, you're not going to feel so alone. You're going to feel like, okay, he's thought that same thing. I thought that same thing. Then we are a community of guys who are just trying to do the best we can day by day. So finding balance. What do you do?
Gosh, that is a great question. I actually love that word balance, because that is something that I use a lot in my work with people in therapy. All about striking a balance. So as I was just saying, sometimes I have to set my own needs to the side. I don't forget about them. I just maybe put them on pause. So, you know, I have kind of an agreement with my wife that after we get our son to bed, which is usually about 8 o'clock, then I can go out for a run, right? And, you know, it's not the first thing I want to do, run at night, you know, but, you know, that's where kind of the trade-off is. You know, I help her, we get our son settled, you know, that way she's just responsible for, you know, our daughter, and then I have a little bit of freedom to be able to go out for a run. And I think that's just, you know, I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier. One, expressing your needs and trying to schedule those things out, because even when we go to lunch, right, that is something that sometimes takes a little bit of planning, you know, but it is important. So I think when you plan, when you communicate these things, you're more likely to get these things that you need and want, you know, as an individual, as a dad, as a husband. And that's how I try and find some balance. You know, I try and meet the needs of my family, but I also recognize if I don't take care of myself, I'm more likely to get sick. Then I won't be good for anyone. I'll get burned out. I can become resentful. You know, if my wife is able to go and get a manicure, you know, if she's asked me for a couple of hours to go and do that, but then I feel like I'm not getting that in return, I could become very, you know, resentful and upset over that. But I think it's ultimately communication, you know, trying to schedule things out, and, you know, still taking that time for yourself. You know, ultimately that's how I try to find balance. And balance is kind of an interesting word. You know, when you're a new dad and you work, you know, it's not like balance as in it's not 50-50. You know, it's more like it's more like 90-10 or maybe 95-5. Right. As far as getting my own personal time. And again, I'm fine with that. You know, it's okay. I love being with my kids. I also need a break from my kids. Right. You know, at times. You know, like I said, when they're crying and yelling and not listening, and, you know, they're little. And so, again, I try to practice patience and remember, but ultimately, I still need just that breather occasionally.
I like how you mentioned about it's not 50-50. You know, sometimes 60-40, 70-30 on both sides, really. You know, you guys, well, maybe this is a better analogy. You guys complement each other on your highs and your lows, meeting each other. Some days she's going to need a little more help. Some days you're going to need more help. But if both of y'all are willing to take up the slack every once in a while to help each other, to meet together, I think that's a wonderful idea. So it's not like, oh, I've done my part. You know, I'm sorry, you're on your own. You know, kind of thing. That probably will not work in most relationships. Just telling you right now. Okay, so, but that kind of segues into, how has your role as a husband changed? You know, what are you doing differently? You know, it's so easy when you have no kids to go, you know, off for the weekend and do this and that. You got no obligations to be anywhere, do anything, sleep in, things like that. And, you know, you get to date your wife for quite some time. I've experienced that myself, being an empty nester. And so recently married myself. And so, yeah, I'm experiencing that. And it's fun. I'll tell you right now. We're having a good time. We really are. But you are in the thick of it. So your role as a husband, how's that changed?
So, you know, I think, again, just going back to the issue of communication, you know, one thing, and balance, you know, one thing that my wife and I have kind of agreed to, and this kind of speaks to parenting and with, you know, my role as a husband. So Monday through Thursday, my wife kind of takes care of getting our waking up with our daughter. You know, so that, because we are in the type of profession where we need to be able to think clearly. I've run off of little sleep, and I can't form my words. I'm kind of foggy, and that doesn't work so great.
In the middle of a session with a client, can you imagine, like, your eyes kind of drooping?
Yeah.
Are you listening to me?
Right.
Yes, of course I'm listening to you. What were you last thinking?
Right. So my wife kind of takes care of that Monday through Thursday, and then we have an agreement that on the weekends that I will take over that responsibility, just kind of waking up with the kids or getting up with the kids so that she can get sleep.
Yeah.
And for my wife, I'm sure you can relate. Getting a full night's sleep is much better than roses or a romantic date or anything like that.
Or
yes,
diamonds
absolutely.
or anything,
Right.
right?
I mean, I could write sonnets, and she would rather have a full night's sleep, than any kind of romantic gesture, or in that sense, maybe what romantic meant when we were dating is much different than what it is now. So really, just being allowing her to have some time, not only to sleep, but like I said, if she wants to go and get a manicure or go out to lunch with a friend or anything like that, trying to do what I can to make sure that happens, because she needs her time as well. And as well, I have great, parents, and I have great in-laws who, when we're visiting them, they're willing to watch our children so that we can still go on a date. And my parents have offered to watch our children so that we can go on a date. And I think continuing to date, even when you're in the thick of parenting, is important, because it is very easy for the relationship to be put on the back burner, because you've got, I'm not going to even make a list of responsibilities. You know what the responsibilities are. And all your time and attention can go towards your children, which, it should, but also you need to continue to nurture the relationship. And so just making sure that I am speaking up and say that we need a date night or things like that. So I think that's kind of how my role as a husband has shifted, so.
Cool. Very cool. Last few questions. What advice would you give new dads and dads to be, if you could do it all over again, or do things differently, and you're still in the thick of it, so maybe it's not a totally fair question, but what advice would you give?
Okay. So we said earlier there's no book on parenting, or really on no handbook, I think is a better way to say it, on being a dad or parenting. But there's a movie. Now, this is going to sound a little odd as far as a good blueprint for being a dad. Now, there's an older movie.
What is it?
Son of Godzilla.
Son of Godzilla.
Son of Godzilla. Okay.
I've never seen it before, but I may have to put it in my playlist.
Right. So, I'll say this. Go on YouTube and look up Godzilla Good Father.
Godzilla Good Father, okay.
There was even a PSA kind of using clips of this movie.
Are you serious?
Yes, to demonstrate. So,
it's awesome.
All right, so I'll, just briefly. So, Godzilla, king of monsters, and he's got this son who's the complete opposite of him. Very timid, very nervous, doesn't really know how to do anything. So Godzilla, throughout this movie, tries to teach him how to breathe fire, and when his son does it, it just comes out as like this little smoke ring, and tries to teach him how to do that iconic Godzilla yell. And as much as the son wants to do it, he struggles, right? So Godzilla shows patience, right, towards his son. He demonstrates what he needs to do to be able to survive in this world. And so I know it sounds silly, but to me, I think it's actually a great example of how to be a dad. Take the time. Don't just tell your children what to do. Demonstrate what you want them to do. And I think, I don't know if the creators of Son of Godzilla meant the ending to be as touching as it was, but spoiler alert.
Tearjerker, possibly here, right?
So there they are. They're fighting this creature that has attacked their son. They end up defeating it. Well, as this is going on, it's snowing, right? So they defeat this creature, and here they are in the snow. Well, they're giant lizards. They don't do so hot in the snow. So you see the son, he's starting to fall over, and he's kind of whining or crying like he's in pain and having difficulty. And Godzilla takes his son, wraps him, and just kind of sits there. And they go into hibernation. But I just thought it was surprisingly sweet that Godzilla, rather than continuing on his journey because he saw his son struggling, stopped, embraced his son, and just sat there and waited for the impending winter.
Right.
So my advice is that for dads, make sure that you are again, you're patient, you're demonstrating the type of behaviors that you would like to see in your children. Never ask them to do something that you're not willing to do. And tell your children that you love them. Never let a day go by where they don't know. Actually annoy them, right? Make it where they're tired of hearing you say it. Because, and I have a daughter. She's not even 3 months old. My plan is to make sure that she is loved and that she knows that she's beautiful, because if she doesn't hear it from me, she's going to hear it from someone else, right? And we may not like that person.
That is true.
So, but ultimately, I think just 90% of being a dad is showing up and being willing, really kind of being willing to be goofy sometimes. I mean, my son is fascinated that my hand can talk.
That's great.
And just cracks him up, and and recognizing that our children, it kind of ebbs and flows on, if they're really into you,
Right.
there might be days that they're more attached to you, or even weeks they're more attached, but it kind of ebbs and flows. Like I said, don't get frustrated. They love you. It can be easy to get frustrated and feel like, well, my kids don't listen to me. They don't care about me, or they cry every time I hold them,
Right.
whatever it might be. But especially for new dads with a baby, just kind of remember, the 4 B's here. Bottle, burp, butt, or bed. If you remember that, you'll be able to satisfy your child's needs.
That's great.
Right?
That's
Anything
great.
outside of that,
Yeah.
I mean, just remember that. And I'll say this, when we had our first child, my wife did not change a single diaper until we got home, because I knew, I kind of viewed diapers, that's going to be gross. Or blah,
Right,
blah, blah.
right.
I just jumped into it,
man.
Right.
Both
just,
feet.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Right. Just went in and took care of it. And so, so just be willing to be there, be willing to act silly or goofy. You may not be the best singer. I am definitely not, but I'll sing Twinkle Twinkle or watch Paw Patrol or Mickey Mouse's Clubhouse 5 episodes in a row.
Yeah.
We may have already seen them 5 times, but being willing to do that, because that's what that's what your child's into.
Dads to be, any thoughts on while your wife is pregnant?
So I
Or
think,
significant other?
I would just view anything, like I said, changing diapers, these things as a bonding experience. So before your child gets here, just trying to talk to your child, sing to your child, help them recognize your voice, because they're recognizing mom's voice because they hear it all the time.
Right.
So any way that you can bond with your child, take the time off to go to the ultrasound, go to the doctor's visits, educate yourself. My wife and I, we always talked about, actually, there was a great app that I downloaded. It's called Daddy Up. And so it helped me kind of recognize, what's going on with our child.
Oh, cool. Okay.
per
Daddy
week.
up.
Daddy Up, yeah. And it's funny because they make comparisons, like typically for women, the apps will say, well, your child's the size of, an apple or whatever it might be. Like for Daddy Up, it'll be like, well, your your child's the size of an eagle talon, or things like
Right,
that, or
something manly kind of thing, right?
The length of a pickaxe, or
Right.
things like that. But it's helpful because it not only lets you know what's going on, but it also gives you suggestions, as in, are you taking care of yourself? Have you told your wife or partner that they're beautiful?
Oh, good. Yeah.
Little, just simple things.
That's cool.
My wife and I, we actually look forward to every time what the week was, because she was like, okay, well, what do you need to do this week? Like the little suggestion.
Yeah, right.
So I think anything like that, just trying to develop some type of bond, because as we said, the experience with fathers and pregnancy is much different than what it is with moms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, my closing thoughts on that are, dads, all you are wonderful. Mm-hmm. Dads to be. If your children are out of the house, continue to have contact with them. You never stop being a dad. You really don't. So try, though, to take care of yourself before, during, after your kids are out of the house, because they still come to you, I'm hoping, for advice or for visits and whatnot. We need to make sure our mental health is a top priority as fathers, because we do have many demands on us, and as Josh has mentioned before, if we don't take care of ourselves, how will we be of any good to anyone else in our lives who depend on us, love us, need us, etc. I want to thank Josh again for coming and to being part of this video. It's the first time I've interviewed somebody. I hope it went well. I probably have kicked the table a few times, I'm sure. So if the camera shakes, that is why. Okay. So, but this has been great so far. Maybe I'll do this again sometime.
Absolutely.
This is kind of great. So we'll see how this rolls. But anyway, thanks again, and we'll just cut the video off right here. All right. I just want to thank Josh again for joining me as a guest on my video today about dads, new dads, veteran dads, empty nester dads, about how we can best be dads, right? So, because, we have topics and issues and challenges that need to be discussed, and that's what I'm trying to create here, is a community, a tribe of dads, fathers, men, and how we can get along in life. That is my goal. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you got some out of the video, and if nothing else, please remember, again, this is your life. This is your story to write or rewrite as many times as you want. Please check out my video next Sunday, as I do post every Sunday. Ring that bell at the bottom of the screen there so that you guys can be reminded that I have a new video coming out on Sundays. And so have a fantastic week.